All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Stay Cool with Higher Performing Air Conditioning. As implied by this title, I already think you're very cool for signing up for this webinar, but we're also going to be focusing on heat pump, air conditioning and heating. And this will be an opportunity to connect with some local residents that have already installed this type of appliance. My name is April Price, and I work with the Tri-County Regional Energy Network. And we have about an hour together, a lot to cover. So quickly, our agenda, we'll be going over introducing my organization, get into heat pump 101, really basics, walk you through some financial considerations when you're making this decision. And then we'll introduce you to some local residents that are living with heat pumps in our region. We're going to really look to leave quite a bit of time for Q&A so that you can really get all of your tough questions answered. And then we'll finish up with a platform that will help you stay engaged with both heat pumps and other emission saving opportunities. So this webinar is offered in partnership with a few other agencies. I'll get into the offerings of Resilient Central Coast and Central Coast Community Energy in just a bit, but thank you very much to our partners. So quick background, 3C-REN is a collaboration between 3 neighboring counties to offer energy efficiency support to folks that work in energy efficiency and folks like yourself that might be interested in making energy efficiency upgrades in your home. We offer these services through 3 separate programs, and tonight we're focused on home energy savings. So getting right into the meat of our program, Heat Pumps 101, what on earth is a heat pump? So heat pumps are basically electric devices that move heat around. So they use electricity to pump heat from one place to another. So when you're looking to heat your home, you're pumping heat from outside in your home. And when you're looking to cool your home, you're pumping the hot air that's inside your home outside. So that's about as technical as we're going to get in terms of how a heat pump works. But we'll get into a little bit more of why this might be a good choice for you. So in considering the benefits of a heat pump, we're thinking about a very highly efficient piece of technology. So, you know, when I first was introduced to heat pumps, I didn't really get how powerful they were. It wasn't until engaging with Project Drawdown and hearing about really the opportunity for emission saving associated with this high efficient technology that I really realized how efficient they were. It's not looking at heating coils to heat your home. So high efficiency, it's using cleaner electricity as our grid gets cleaner, both in California and then of course more broadly at a national and hopefully global scale. We're also considering the benefits of filtration and dehumidification. And certainly something that's quite beneficial, we'll hear from our speakers that have a few different styles of heat pumps, are their flexibility. So you can really work with a heat pump technology to meet your needs. Another speaker will speak to this next point of their safety. So you're not burning anything with a heat pump. And so you don't have to worry about carbon monoxide or other air quality concerns in deploying a heat pump in your home. And of course, this is, we got you here talking about air conditioning. It's a hot day, but the real benefit here is that it's a 2-in-1 device. So perhaps you're looking to install air conditioning, but your furnace is near the end of its useful life. By opting for a heat pump device, you're suddenly killing 2 birds with 1 stone, or rescuing 2 ladybugs with 1 leaf, whatever you want to say. One perhaps consideration or a couple of considerations would be the cost. So traditionally, heat pumps have been seen as a higher cost investment than replacing your furnace, for instance, with a natural gas furnace. But there are rebates and tax credits now that are bringing down the price. And we'll also hear from one of our speakers that a heat pump was cheaper than replacing their natural gas furnace. The cost for operating the equipment is another consideration, certainly because this is such a highly efficient device. It's going to be cheaper to run your air conditioning through a heat pump than a traditional air conditioning unit. But you will want to be careful with the electricity increase associated with running even highly efficient heating. So we'll get into some numbers a little bit later, but just wanted to kind of address that because it's a real concern. And the folks that will be sharing their stories tonight have paired quite nicely with having solar on their homes. And finally, a consideration would just be maintenance. So there's certain cleaning and annual maintenance that is associated with heat pumps, but also with furnaces. And we can check in with our homeowners shortly to hear their experiences with keeping their heat pump systems operating smoothly. Okay, come on, slide. See if you can move forward there. Okay, excuse my slides jumping around. So we are really considering this as a major opportunity to reduce emissions in the Central Coast, and about half of the emissions in the Central Coast, as shown shortly, come from heating our water and our space. So we're really looking to address about 20% of our local emissions if we're able to shift over to heat pump technology. And this is not some kind of niche technology that just April here is talking about, but also really taking off across the state. So this map, if it comes up here, shows just quickly the recent adoption of about 6,000 heat pumps through a recent incentive program. And one thing I want to draw your attention to, there was a lot of money that was available to incentivize folks to install heat pumps. And they really took off down in San Diego County. You can see that dark blue saturation there. And various other areas of the state were able to take advantage of this funding opportunity. But okay, about 1,000 heat pumps down in San Diego County. Our local Monterey, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties had really low adoption. Monterey, 1, San Luis Obispo, 4, and Santa Barbara County, 9. And one of those Santa Barbara County installs was my boss. So there's really a lot of opportunity here. And when I talk to contractors about, hey, why are we not seeing these installs, flying off the trucks? This is such a great technology. The number one thing that I hear is folks are not asking for this. So it really behooves you to educate yourself and ask your contractor, ask the person who would be replacing your HVAC about a heat pump system to really get the job done. All right, so really high level here. What does a heat pump system look like? So in kind of your, well, one option to think about is just kind of a central heat pump system. So if you already have central AC and central heating, you'd just be simply utilizing the existing ductwork. You'd have your outdoor heat pump, your air handler, and you could have one temperature control, or you could have other temperature controls. So you have your outdoor unit and your indoor unit, pretty similar living experience to, again, your central heating and AC that perhaps you already have in your home. Another option for this flexible technology would be a ductless mini split. So in this application of heat pump technology, you have your compressor outside of the home, and then you have one, two, or several heads within the home to have various temperature zones. So this really gives you maximum control to control the temperature zone by zone in a really efficient manner. So again, you can have one room, 70 degrees, one room, 60 degrees, depending on the needs of the occupants. And if you don't have ducts, you don't need them. So it's a great application for folks in that sense. This is just getting to the idea that these things can be flexible. You can combine ductless applications with ducted applications if you have a bigger home with various temperature needs. And then finally, just teasing this idea a bit, I've seen this mainly in hotels traveling, this packaged through the wall terminal air conditioner. These aren't all heat pumps. I don't mean to imply that, but some of them are heat pumps. And so this is mainly in commercial applications, but just wanted to be comprehensive in the types of heat pumps that I introduce you to. When you start getting into heat pumps and getting some quotes from contractors, for instance, you'll start to see some numbers. One of those numbers is the SEER number, and that's looking at how efficient your heat pump is in cooling mode. So you're going to want to look for a fairly high number in the SEER range. Similarly, heat pumps are rated for how they operate in heating mode. So that would be the HSPF of your heat pump. And you're similarly going to want to aim fairly high. As long as you're getting something in the Energy Star range, you're probably in pretty decent shape. All right, so in addition to those numbers, something that I've that's been drawn to my attention is another valuable thing to look at is whether you're considering a single, dual, or variable speed system. So the quick primer here is these options are going to affect the efficiency of your system and also the comfort of your system of living in a home with a heat pump system. So if you have a single speed system, it's either on or off. So you set your thermostat, for instance, and your system will power on to get you to your desired temperature, and then it will power off. So you can imagine quite a bit of on and off can be tough on the system and have some efficiency implications. Dual speed would be similar, except for there's kind of two speeds. The first speed is usually around 70% and then can crank up to operating at 100%. So this can be a better application if you have bigger swings in temperature. So that's another consideration. And then kind of the fanciest option, if you will, would be the variable speed. And the variable speed heat pump can be adjusted to really operate at capacities ranging from about 30 to about 100%. So there's going to be price differentials between these various speeds. And for folks living in different temperature zones, one of these might be a better fit than the other. So we'll be introducing our speakers shortly, but they live throughout the Central Coast region and can speak to, in some cases, what was the best option for them. Okay, quick introduction to the financial considerations when you're thinking about a heat pump. So I imagine that many of you have been tracking the recent federal legislation, the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. From a general read, it appears that this legislation will result in a 30% federal tax credit on the purchase of a heat pump, which is very exciting. I would say what's a little bit less clear is when purchases will be eligible for this federal tax credit. It does seem like that would begin in 2023, but of course it's fresh legislation, and we can follow up with the email if we learn more. All right, there are some more local considerations that will lower the upfront cost of a heat pump. One program is offered by Central Coast Community Energy, who serves, I know we have a large geographic range of attendees today, but Central Coast Community Energy serves much of Monterey, San Luis Obispo, and Santa Barbara counties. So if you are served by Central Coast Community Energy, there's very attractive incentives available, up to $3,500 for a heat pump, and you can see additional rebates there for electric panel, and if you happen to be qualified for a discounted utility rate. There is another local program that I work with. That's 3CREN, again, the Tri-County Regional Energy Network's single family program. And through this program, contractors that are enrolled in our program are able to offer discounted rates on energy efficiency upgrades, including heat pumps. And they're able to offer especially discounted rates for customers that are hard to reach. So again, folks that qualified for those discounted utility rates, or in some cases, folks that don't speak English as their primary language at home. All right, so these two programs, 3CREN's single family program and the Central Coast Community Energy Program, actually pair together quite nicely. So the single family program pays incentives directly to the contractors, and the Central Coast Community Energy pays incentives directly to the consumer. So when those two are stacked together, the intent is that you will walk out of the door or walk into your home with a very discounted heat pump or other energy efficiency upgrade. All right, and this is just a teaser here. Here's some local contractors that have enrolled in 3CREN's single family program. Don't feel the need to jot any of these names down. We will follow up with links to both of these programs and ways to engage with contractors that are enrolled in both of those programs. And I'm almost done, I promise. Another really valuable tool in considering how much it will cost for you to operate your system and calculating the ROI also comes from Central Coast Community Energy. They have this tool available on their website. Again, I'll follow up with a link. But as you begin to engage with contractors and get quotes on these systems, you can use this tool to input your quotes, input some information about the existing methods by which you heat and cool your home, and you can even apply your energy tariff or the way that you're billed for your energy. So that at the end of the day, if everything is working well behind the scenes, you'll get a graph like what's on the right-hand side of your screen that shows your monthly bill savings in both electricity and natural gas. And this is just an example. I was playing around with some numbers. And in this example, there's quite a bit of therm savings and some electricity savings, but at the end of the day, there's still a slight increase in the cost for energy when you switch over. But certainly I invite you to play with this tool because it's fun, and you might learn a lot about the application. All right, so now I'm very excited to welcome 4 folks that have very, very graciously agreed to share their stories with us today. These folks come from throughout the Central Coast. So I'll give you the rundown quickly. We're going to hear from Mike from Santa Barbara. We're going to hear from Lori from Vandenberg Village, Leanne from San Luis Obispo, and finish off with Andy from Santa Margarita. As I mentioned earlier, all 4 of these lovely folks do have solar, so that is a consideration in how much the heat pump impacts their bills, but they also live in a variety of climate zones. So with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Mike to tell your story about your heat pump. Thank you so much, Mike.
Oh, fantastic. Happy to be here. So we live in Santa Barbara in an area called Hidden Valley in a single-story 1969 built home. And we were going solar at the time in 2016, and really looking for how we could go as electric as possible at that time. We really didn't have any kind of, only had a heater taking up a big closet in the house. We had asbestos wrapped ducts running through the attic and the walls. So it was really an opportunity for us to kind of do a big upgrade on the property. What was interesting when we were doing this was only 2016, not that long ago, but even here in the city of Santa Barbara, when we went up to the first front desk at the city, I was doing the owner builder role, trying to save some general contractor money and figuring it out myself. And the city permit, they weren't even sure where we were legally allowed to have a heat pump at that time. And it was actually by talking to going back to Michael Chacos over at the CEC Community Environmental Council, who actually called up the ladder at the building and zoning of the city of Santa Barbara, that they confirmed there was no problem, and they started getting us into what we would need to figure out in terms of sound regulations and zoning, and what kind of units we could get for our house. From my understanding now, and even from helping my sister look at HVAC for their home, it's become so much easier. So really, thankful as we're seeing the city progress and catch up to what seemed like an obvious choice, considering how much solar was coming into Santa Barbara. We started working with a great group out of Camarillo that actually walked us through a lot of options. Ended up going with a 3.5 ton horizontal unit, and are all with a system called Through Train, was the company at the time that had we paid a little more for lower decibels, trying to look to make sure we had a little bit of a quieter system that we were going in with. Kind of nice to know that those are the options. So when you're looking at this, you can actually look for efficiency, but also what's the volume going to be? How loud will this thing be if you're putting it in your attic, or when it's starting up or coming off? For us, it was really fantastic. We ended up getting an entire closet back in our house. And that added a lot of square footage back for a pantry, as we had a growing family at the time. It was really a really great use of funds for us. So we kind of got double use out of it, moving all the HVAC to a condenser outside and to the horizontal unit up in the attic. Really found there's a couple different things that we found out of it that have been really great. Love that fact that we're obviously on solar, so just being as electric as possible. It adds definitely value for the home to be more electric and less gas powered if we look to sell later on. And so we love that. Our bills are super low. We're lucky to be in a 99%. For solar, we get nonstop air there. So that's great for us. And also, as we do this process, the two things I would suggest too is think about insulation. a big area for us was also understanding how insulated or drafty our home was, because that drastically changes how much the cost is to heat or cool it. And we spent a lot of research on that. I spent a lot of time insulating the attic, which ended up saving us a lot of money, as well as putting in better windows and sealing some drafty doors, more weather stripping. Relatively cheap jobs to do yourself or do with a handyman, but they were amazingly successful for saving money once we put in the actual new HVAC system. And we're currently now actually taking our entire kitchen electric. We've been upgrading our HVAC. We added an ionizer, which has been amazing, and thicker filters. And the newest thing we're putting in is we're going to be putting in these new smart vents. So you can actually close certain vents in different areas of the house to not necessarily have to run as much AC or as much heat, depending upon, because my wife and I like different temperatures at different times of the day.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. Got a new closet, a comfortable space, and a good experience. All right. Moving a bit north. Lori, are you ready to share your story?
Absolutely. Thanks, April. So I've always considered myself a pretty strong environmentalist and really wanted to get away from the use of fossil fuels as much as possible. But what my catalyst to make the change to a heat pump, in February of 2020, I was cooking dinner on a Saturday night and the carbon monoxide detector in my house went off. The fire department came in, they thought it was just the batteries. And then one of the guys walked up and said, Cap, we got a problem. They brought in their own sensor, took a reading, went back outside, came back inside, and there was dangerous levels of carbon monoxide with the highest concentration in my bedroom. So without that detector, my dog and I would have died that night. So the HVAC company came in and they confirmed that I had a cracked heat exchanger in my furnace. And so that was it. I had to literally turn the furnace off in February for about a month until we got everything in place. So, literally I could have died. So I immediately decided I was going to go with a heat pump. And like everyone here, I did bundle it with my solar panels. So I had everything brought in at the same time. Since I've converted, my largest gas bill was $17. And I still have a gas stove, water heater, and clothes dryer. In the January before switching, my gas bill was just under $50. And now I've had about a 65% decrease in my gas bill. And with solar, I haven't had a PG&E bill in 6 months. Some of the biggest pluses that I like with the heat pump is that it kicks in automatic immediately. When you flip that thermostat on, it comes on. You don't have to wait for the heat exchanger to build up the heat to start pumping the air through the system. Now I have a ducted system. My house was built in 1962. So it is an older home. And like Mike, the asbestos on the vents or on the ducts and the insulation is absolutely something to consider. I have a 4-ton system and it was manufactured by Day and Night. And it is a split system, I've been told. And it is a central unit. So basically they literally took the same closet that I had my gas furnace in and put the heat pump in. So, and that's what I did. And I actually had somebody ask me, there's my picture. I had someone ask me, why did I go to a heat pump? And I went, because I wanted one, because I want to get away from using fossil fuel. So that's my story.
Thank you so much, Lori, and so happy that you were okay that night and still okay, and really appreciate you sharing. Leanne, are you ready to talk about your system?
Yeah, I can just kind of point it out. It's right behind me. Hi, everybody. My husband and I used to live on a sailboat, and so we're very conscious of being environmentally sound. And we had solar panels on the boat, and we hauled our own water. You know, there were a lot of things. So when we moved back into a house, we were trying to go with what was the best thing for everybody, you know, the environment and ourselves. We'd spent a lot of time in other countries. We noticed that they had these split ducts. And my biggest objection was going to be, how do they look? Because I'm remodeling a house. I didn't want these big things on the walls. So that is one of the smaller ones, but right above it, you can see that's the old heater vent that originally was where our heat came through. In San Luis Obispo, very few people had air conditioning. This house was built in the late 80s. And there was a big heater up in the attic, and it had, I appreciate what Lori said, it had a gas, you know, burner. And when you turned it on, you'd hear this whoosh, and the gas would go and the heat would come on, but there was no air conditioning. So we had decided we were going to have solar panels, and why not put in these heating units? And we must have gotten about 8 different bids, and the bids were split units. And then we actually went to heat pump, and we actually went to replacing the heater up in the attic. And we could have gone a little cheaper, but we wanted the company that we got. And I remember one of our bids was for $25,000, and ours was half that. So you have to really do your homework and find out the people who understand it, and then kind of go into that next level. It would have been easy to go back to ducting, except for the fact that our ducts were, 30 something years old. And so we just wanted to go with all new, all good. Now, I don't know if you could hear it. It just kicked on. I'll walk around a little bit. That's what this one looks like. And the window is down below it. This is the individual, each one has its own individual remote. I can do air, I can do heat, I can do fan, I can do auto, I can do high, low, I can do a lot of things. That's this one, and this is a really small room, but it gets afternoon heat and it gets too warm for me. And I'm like Mike, my husband likes things warmer than I do, and I like things cooler. This is our master bedroom. That's the one in the master bedroom. It's not on right now because we don't turn it on until we go to sleep. We set it at 70 degrees. It kicks in. It doesn't wake me up during the night, which was a big thing for me. I didn't want to get cold air blown on top of me intermittently and noise. And that doesn't happen. And I'm real fussy about that. The one in the living room is larger. And that was the one I was worried that was going to look terrible. It's on right now because my husband has it on. How can I do this? Oops, there. That's it. I thought it was going to be ugly, but I've gotten used to it. And it too has its own remote. So in the morning, he gets up and he turns on the heat. I'm in the bedroom sleeping with the air conditioner on. The other room does not have anything going, and that's fine. It just works the best for us. And the outside unit, which is different than what you guys have got, we don't have one big box. We have one, let's make sure I don't run out of, this is one of, that's one of the, oops, that's a window. I thought I could do this. Where am I? Sorry, you're probably getting seasick. Sorry, April, I'm screwing it up. It's not unit that goes outside. That's it. On the ground, on a cement pad. And that's, the wires are behind that. They go up into the attic, and it's all cool. I mean, there's just nothing. And by the way, the noise and the HOA, you have to, HOAs have to let you have these, but they will tell you where you can put them. And we're in an HOA, we're in a condo. Nobody can hear our stuff. They're just very quiet. This one's probably on right now. Maintenance on it is once a year we go in and we kind of brush it off. And there's filters in each unit, and we go clean those out, or we don't. Somebody comes in to do that, and it costs us $95 a year. And we just, really, really like them.
So let's see, what else can I tell you about this? Convenient. The cost is
So cool. Leanne, you broke up just a little bit there. Your cleaning, you said costs $95 for a year for someone to come out and clean.
Yeah. They just come in and they clean the filters, replace anything, clean them up, you know, because they're up there. I don't want to get up on a ladder particularly. And then they just check and make sure all the hoses or wires are cool. We've had it for 5 years. I think we have a warranty that's either 10 or 15 years. We have solar panels, so we too, Lori, don't have an electric bill, except then we bought an electric car, and guess what? You have to have more panels. So we did that, but we will, when the dryer goes, we may get an electric dryer. When the water heater goes, we'll get an electric water heater. So I just, you know, it's on right now. I can't tell you how quiet it is. I like to put this up there. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Because you can't, and I'm glad of that. That's all I got.
Thanks, Leanne. I'll quickly just jump in, and I appreciated the story that you shared that you didn't expect to need AC, but then with the heat waves, you know, suddenly you became the most popular person in your social circle.
That's right. We would invite the neighbors over. Right after we installed it, people said, "Are you crazy, San Luis Obispo? You don't need AC." And right after that, we had a heat wave. It was 105. And we called some of our really close friends that are in their 80s. And I said, you know, bring your pinnacle board, bring some, you know, whatever's your BYOB, and we'll just sit here and stay cool because it's dangerous. And they did. And we had a really good time.
All right. Thank you so much, Leanne. Andy, are you ready to jump in with your story?
I am, yeah. So I'm Andy Mutziger. I live in Santa Margarita and I'm excited. She's going to be putting up our presentation here. Okay, so I want to just share with you an experience. I'm hoping that you all don't make the mistake that we made. So I guess the main thing is, for as you're thinking about heat pumps, if you do have temperatures that are frequently below 45 degrees Fahrenheit, you might think about choosing the more modern hyperheat style heat pump like Leanne has, relative to the standard old school heat pumps. And as you can see, our temperatures in the winter are frequently below 45 degrees. So if you can go down to the next slide, please. And as that's going or waiting for it to go, I'll just jump in here and basically, so what is the difference between the standard heat pumps and the old school heat pumps and the newer systems? If you can go back, there we go. So basically at 45 degrees, the standard heat pumps, they begin to lose efficiency and they just can't provide the heat to the system that is needed. So what they have to do instead is they augment them with what they call heat strips, which are basically big coils, and they are power hungry. So you know, conversely, if you look at the hyperheat technology, that system is actually effective, you know, 100% down to 5 degrees Celsius or 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's going to work really well for our area. But what the hyperheat does is it's basically an inverter driven technology. And as that temperature drops outside, it's a variable speed compressor. And that ramps up and the system funnels the excess heat that comes off the compressor magnets into the air handler. And the air handler is a multi-speed air handler as well. So it has a lot of adjustability that it can do to provide the heat that's necessary, and it's doing it at a way more efficient rate than you would with the heat strips. And then it just continues to maintain the set point with that variable speed system. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So what did we install? We basically had a 20-year-old natural gas heater and air conditioning system. And in May of 2021, we made that choice to purchase the standard heat pump with those heat strips. And if we look here, that two-stage systems what we bought, which had two air handler speeds as well, that was $13,800 installed. And now with these rebates and tax credits, you'll be able to secure some reductions in these costs as well. But if you look at the next one over, that's a 5-stage standard heat pump, which also has those heat strips, and that's $18,200. So, you know, you're not really getting much better, and it's a lot more expensive. So we built our system to have to meet 160% of our solar. Well, the solar met 160% of our solar, our electric needs before we put the heat pump in. And when we installed this standard heat pump, it used that 60% plus some. Okay, and just one last thing here, the heat strip is an 8 kilowatt heat strip. So it sucks the power quite well. Let's move on to the next and last slide. So I did have another quote when I was choosing this project, and I sure wish I had gone with this quote instead. I just didn't really understand at the time. And basically it's the hyperheat quote was, it's $2,700 less expensive. It's more efficient. And I really wished I had gone with that because it's much more effective. As I don't have personal experience, but my understanding is it's much more effective at those low temperatures like we have here. And they use them in Minnesota and Maine and very cold places. They don't use the type of heat pump that I put in, and I wished I hadn't put it in.
So, Andy, one thing, when you were telling me about this system, I definitely heard your buyer's remorse, but also it did seem like the air conditioning was fine for you.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, so right now we're getting 104-degree temperatures in Margarita this summer already. We're going to see some more next week, and it is effective. You know, it works well. The standard heat pump does definitely work well at those higher temperatures. So if you have more moderate climates like in San Luis Obispo, you know, the standard heat pump would probably be fine. You may actually see more efficiency with the hyperheat system, and which would save you money. And it seems like it's a lesser cost system anyway.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing, Andy. Yeah, I think this really highlights, you know, your climate zone has a big impact on your system potentially. I mean, the system that you wish that you would have bought seems like it would work well across the territory that we're addressing today, but the older, more basic system would probably work fine in a place like Santa Barbara or San Luis Obispo, where you're not getting down into those really cold nights or days.
That's my feeling too. Yeah, I'd sure like to see. You know, it'd be nice to see maybe some of the North County jurisdictions create a preference for these more efficient heat pumps that work at lower temperatures that we experience here.
Okay, very interesting. So there's been a lot of questions coming through, and it seems like a lot of them are being answered very efficiently. Keep them coming, and we can also, if you'd like to ask a question live, we can offer that option as well. While we're getting more questions in the chat, one thing that I'd like to make sure that we cover across the board, Leanne, we heard from you, you paid about $100 a year to have someone come and clean your heat pump. Can we hear from the rest of the folks about what maintenance has looked like for you? Lori, are you managing any maintenance for your system, or has that been necessary? Remind us, when did you put your system in?
I put mine in the spring of 2020. I do you know, I have them come out, clean off the condenser outside, change the filter every 6 months, but that's about it.
Okay. And is that a similar price for service, around
Yeah.
$100 per visit? Mhm.
Not even $100 a visit. It works out to be about $120 a year.
Oh, great. Mike, what about for you?
Yeah, I think I pay $150 for 2 visits, and I have an extra like 4-inch thick filters, and they just told me to buy them aftermarket. So I buy filters on Amazon, I think for 15 or 20 bucks a pop, and they'll replace them for me when they come in. I also have them. Oh, sorry, my dog's going crazy here. I also have them change the change where the airflow on the ducting when they come in, along with the filter changes. But all for I think 150 bucks on the year. Really, really inexpensive.
Oh, fantastic. And Andy, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, honestly, we haven't had our system serviced yet, but I think we do understand it's about $95 as well to do the service.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome any hand raises, or Vanya, I know that you had some questions that you were hoping to get to as well. I welcome you to jump in. But one thing I know we want to talk about is price. And one thing that was especially interesting to me in Leanne's story when we spoke on the phone was how much cheaper it was for you to go with a ductless system as compared to really updating your vents, your ductwork, excuse me. Do you want to speak to that briefly? Zoom is getting the best of us. You're still on mute.
Okay. Whew. I just muted myself. That's what I get. I wish I had all the facts and figures. You know, I went and dug out everything that I had, and really what I had was everybody else's bid. And some of the bids were, and you know, this is 5 years ago. So apples to apples, I could have gotten maybe $1,000 less and $5,000 more. But the big comparison to go back to a gas, regular, you know, not electric system up in the attic, replacing that, and even replacing the duct system, because they said, well, you already have the mountings, you know, blah, 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 we could do all that. And then add the air conditioning was going to be $25,000. And that was, we only have 1,000 square feet, you know, so I was not interested in that. And ours, I'm pretty sure ours was somewhere between 10 and 12,000. And that's 3 brains and 3 units, you know, 3 separate units, which is another good thing. If one goes down, we, you know, we don't care. We've got more, we won't get cold or hot. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. And Andy, you wanted to add to that maybe?
Yeah, I'll just mention, I actually want to circle back with something that Mike had talked about, and that was what he did in the attic. One thing that we did before we even put solar on was we went ahead and put something called passive attic ventilation into the system, into our attic, because it just didn't vent the hot air out. And that basically there's a vent ridge at the very peak of the roof, and you open up the soffits to match the air net-free area of that vent ridge so that you get really good airflow. And basically it blows that hot air in the attic up and out just by convection, just by natural processes. So that basically creates the blanket of hot air that's above there is much cooler. So you have less infiltration over time in the hot days, and cold as well in the winter. The other thing we did too was we added a bunch of insulation as well. I think we're at R43 up there. So those things really helped to, I mean, our old air conditioning system, it had troubles keeping up in the hot summer days. with our old, when we hadn't done that retrofit of our attic space. That retrofit was very time intensive, and it was about $4,000 to do just with sweat equity. So not bad, but it sure has made the comfort of our home a lot better, and puts a lot less draw or stress on the heat pump that we have now.
Yeah, definitely. Both Mike and Andy stressing the importance of insulation pairing with these more efficient systems. Thank you for highlighting that. One thing that I mentioned earlier, communicating with contractors, your interest in heat pumps. And I was wondering if any of our panelists had any stories to share in terms of, how much convincing did you have to do, or, what was your experience like working with a heat pump contractor? We heard Andy had some buyer's remorse, but still has some good air conditioning. So does anyone have anything to share in terms of what it was like to work with a contractor?
Real quick on my end here, if that's okay.
Yeah, jump in there.
I had a great experience on it, but I have a lot of experience working with contractors. So what I'll tell you is, and I mentioned this a little bit in the chat, when you work with certain contractors, they already have deals in place. Some have a predisposition for certain things. I went in saying, I want this system. Here's what I'm looking to do. You tell me what components are going to make the most sense and how to achieve it. And then I went with that to other contractors, so I could have I consider an apples to apples discussion about cost. For my sister, who just bought here in Goleta, they're in a similar situation of looking to go solar, and we've had contractors come out, and the challenge is that contractors often are in a tough situation. They don't want to sticker shock you. So unless you are asking for the system to say, I'm going to go solar, I want a heat pump, and ask for those using those words, they might show you and go, oh, well, let's keep your existing venting and let's just go with a newer gas heater and add an air conditioner or a split system. And they're not going to necessarily lean in to what you want. So I think part of it is, and I'm happy to share what I asked for, I'm sure other people would, you sort of have to go in asking for what you want, or to work with one of the list of contractors, April, you're noting, where they know that you're coming in asking for that type of configuration. Otherwise, you might be dealing with them not wanting to scare you off with what could be a reasonable price tag.
Yeah, just to follow up to what you said, Mike. Yes, I would just say that a lot of the HVAC contractors that have enrolled in our program, for instance, don't necessarily only offer heat pump systems. So I would say, even if you're working with one of the contractors that has partnered with our program, I'd say advocating for a heat pump is still in the hands of the customer.
I was able to bundle my solar panels and my heat pump through the same company. So, they had their contractor that came out, and, they quoted me the information on the heat pump, and it was just with the same contractor. So they didn't push back at me at all, as far as, going with trying to stay with gas or whatever. My home warranty company was a little iffy about it, but I didn't have any problem with it. And my system was about 10,000, but I had, in a previous home, had replaced, that looks like the Poppy Reserve.
Sorry to distract. Finish your
I
thought.
used to volunteer there. That just totally caught my eye. I previously replaced a gas furnace, and it was, $8,000 or $9,000. So, I mean, cost comparatively, it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah, and I can chime in too. We did get a quote for a natural gas replacement at the same time, and it was roughly, this is going back to the hyperheat quote that we had, which was $11,000 for that system, which is AC and heat. So that the quote was about $5,000 for the natural gas by itself. I wasn't going to replace the air conditioning at that moment. But he said when we got the quote from this is Pacific Heat, he said that the AC system would probably be a little bit less than the total. The total would have been a little less than 11,000. But you get a much more efficient system with the heat pump than you have with the natural gas. You're not paying you're not paying SoCal gas for gas any longer.
Yeah.
Similar pricing, I think, maybe a little bit less, but overall you're going to see more costs.
I'm not sure if this is appropriate, but I realized when they were installing ours, the installation is pretty simple because they're not climbing through ducts and trying to do all these different things. So putting it on a wall and then piping it out to the outside, installation was real easy, and maybe that's a cost savings. I don't know.
All right. Well, I would love to continue this conversation, but we are coming up on the end of our hour together. I do want to introduce our partner resource here to keep you informed about both heat pumps and other emission saving opportunities. So the Resilient Central Coast platform is a really neat tool that allows you to, if I can get my computer to work here, allows you to track the emission savings with various upgrades that you can make in your home. And all right, my screen went away, but we're just rolling with this. Happy to send out the link to join the platform, Resilient Central Coast. And there's community challenges based on where you live. So we're launching one for Santa Barbara County shortly, and there's different challenges up the coast. And these allow you, again, not just to conduct energy upgrades in your home, but to calculate the climate benefits of various other measures that you can implement. And I think the really cool thing is it's based on actual data. So if you are getting your electricity, for instance, from Central Coast Community Energy, there's going to be different calculations and different incentives available based on where you live. So it's a really customizable platform that can meet your needs. So we'll send out that following, and would really just like to leave you with a few follow-up actions. Number one, watch out for that invitation from us to join the Central Coast Resilient Central Coast campaign. Number two, you can learn more about electrification at theswitcheson.org. That's another great resource to learn about electrification in general, including HVAC heat pumps, which we've been talking about tonight. And then two other options: when you're ready to engage with a contractor, please keep in mind these incentive programs that are really going to bring down your price. Specifically, the first from Central Coast Community Energy has a limited pot of funds, so I would encourage you to investigate that sooner rather than later. I showed the numbers earlier, and we can send them around again. These slides and recording will be available. You need to work with an enrolled contractor to access those incentive dollars. And similarly with 3C REN's single family program. So again, you're working with an enrolled contractor who will be offering discounted pricing because of the incentive stream that is going towards their work. So learn more, talk to a contractor, and email us with any questions or concerns. I'll check in with our panelists to see if they are so brave as to share their contact information. No obligation there. But You can expect an email in the next few days with, again, recording, slides, tons of resources. And please, everyone out there, there is a heat wave coming up. So stay cool, you already are. And thank you very much for joining us tonight. Take care.
Thank you, Tracy Wren.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good job, Robin.
And Sean, if you're here, you can end our meeting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.